Greetings, Cove residents. Welcome back. I'm George Duncan. Let's briefly discuss the latest passage of Proposition 1, the sale of alcoholic beverages, including mixed beverages, in the city of Copperas Cove. Now, I selected this backdrop just so you'd understand that no one's advocating saloons to pop up in Copperas Cove anywhere, although we did have a saloon at one time. Now, this is not an endorsement one way or the other, but it's merely a collection of information, and is to help us understand the history and the effects of this proposition in our local community. So let's be clear. No one believes that the sale of alcohol is a solution to any problem. In fact, alcohol plays a very crucial role in many domestic violence incidents, and also has been associated with behaviors that are contrary to the good order and discipline in any community, and on many levels. So, whatever side of this argument that you fall on, the legal sale of alcohol is legal now. But no matter where you fall, that should be met with respect and understanding about your moral principles. So let's discuss a little bit about the history of alcohol in the U.S., as well as in our own community. I'm not sure if you were aware, but like I said, we did have saloons. And alcohol was legal in Copperas Cove up until about 1913. The Anti-Saloon League started to host their meetings. And they grew in popularity from around 1906 until they managed to influence a countywide prohibition. Now, that countywide prohibition of alcohol went into effect in 1913. This decimated the saloon industry in Copperas Cove. And the local option has kept Cove dry ever since then. And that's been quite a long time. Now, we'll talk more about local option shortly. But I found during my research that there is much, much more to this issue than most people were aware of. Now let me move here just as a point of reference. This is a slide of the state of Texas. Now we'd have 254 counties, and in 2003 only 35 of those were considered totally wet and 51 were totally dry. 168 were partially wet, and what we talk about partially wet is they had either beer or wine, or beer and wine, or in some portions of the county. Now in 2016, and you'll notice on this map, you'll see the totally wet areas, and then there's sporadic dry areas, which are in this local area here. There's only 7 counties that are totally dry. There are 53 totally wet and 194 that are partially wet. So this map indicates the sharp contrast between those that are wet, dry, and partially wet. Here's a few other interesting facts. And we already know that alcohol was legal in Copperas Cove until 1913. Did you know that the 16th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, now that was the amendment that introduced income tax. That was ratified in 1913. But you may ask, why is this important? Well, up until that point, up to about 70% of the revenues that were generated by the United States was from the sale of alcohol. I'm not sure, but maybe the impending movement towards prohibition nationwide influenced this amendment, since that amendment would actually do away with this means of revenue. But the 18th Amendment did come into effect, and that was prohibition, and it was ratified in 1919. All the way up until the 21st Amendment to the U.S. Constitution that repealed prohibition. Now that was ratified in 1933. Now, I give you those points of reference just to understand that Copperas Cove has been dry for many, many, many years. And again, since 1913. But, you know, it kind of begs the question, if it is such a good idea and most of your residents were interested in that, why didn't it take place? Well, interestingly enough, it wasn't until the 78th legislature in 2003 where the laws changed. Now, your legislature meets every 2 years, and your state representatives get together and change the laws of the state. And in this particular case, one of the changes allowed cities that were located in more than one county, and that does include Copperas Cove. We're located in 3 different counties. But it gave the states that right to host a local option election for the sale of alcohol. Up until that point, Cove was restricted from doing so. Now, the bill was signed into law on June 20th of 2003, and it took effect September 1st of that same year. Now, on September 10th of 2005, the Copperas Cove voters voted to approve beer and wine. Now, they approved beer and wine within the city limits by a margin of 2-1. So, you see, up until that point, Cove really, even if they wanted to, they could not have changed the legality of the sale of any kind of alcoholic beverage within the city. Remember, when Prohibition was repealed, it was left to the sovereignty of the states and the municipalities in order to determine their own future and whether they wanted the sale of alcohol within their limits. So each and every municipality had to vote on it on their own. Otherwise, it remained dry. Now, let's fast forward. On November 8th of this year, our most recent election, the Cove voters did vote to approve the sale of alcoholic beverages, including mixed beverages. 6,038 people voted for it, 1,658 voted against the proposition. Now, this is almost a 4-1 margin in favor of the proposition. And remember, for years to come, there'll be many, many more discussions about the benefits or the detriments of this recent passage. But I think you'll agree with me, we have to leave that to future residents to debate. But until then, it's the law. And Copperas Cove now joins the many cities in our local region who have decided to allow the sale of alcohol and also add another revenue stream for their city. Hope you found this interesting and informative. Please feel free to comment if you like. Now, remember, we are a proud city full of great citizens. So until we see you on the next video, thank you for your time.